Take a look at this end-to-end workflow for customer support tickets. It has tens of nodes, tons of AI agents all orchestrating together, and even has vector databases, memory management, and even parallel processing. Now this looks like the future of scalable AI automation, right? Wrong. In reality, something like this would not just be expensive to run at hyperscale, but also unbelievably unreliable. From hallucinations to using the wrong tools and ballooning API costs, AI agents can be a source of all kinds of headaches in the real world. And that's why most people are living in la la land when we talk about AI agents and really having serious conversations about implementing them in actual businesses. They see super complex automations with tons of agent nodes and assume that this is sophisticated. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why adding more AI agents to your existing workflows doesn't make them smarter. If anything, it makes it more exponentially likely for them to fail. Just let me show you. So this is basically a snapshot of me 6 to 12 months ago when all of these AI agent nodes started springing up from everywhere. Not just N8N, not just make.com, but every single app. And the initial idea was just like, cool, I'm really good at prompt engineering. So as long as I get the prompts right and I tell it exactly when to use which tool in which circumstance, I should be fine, whether it's 2 agents, 5 agents, or even 50 agents. But behind my smug assumptions, I not only had AI agents blowing up behind the scenes, not doing what they're supposed to do, but in many cases just reaching a lot of terminal failures in a very short amount of time. And this is really the reality of using AI agents in production. Now, I don't want to do a blanket statement to say AI agents can't work in production. I will just say that based on all of the automations I've seen, there's only a handful that work really well because the person designing it positions the AI agent where it makes the absolute sense. So taking a look at our initial workflow, we have AI agents all across the board. We have one here, we have one here, we have one at the top, the technical support agent. We have 3 more agents here, all of which, if you were looking at this just from a blank screen, you would say this is logical. We should have different agents allocated for different tasks and just pray that if we prompt them all correctly and use the same model, that will just be fine. So maybe to the naked eye, the automation looks like this, but to my eyes that have seen all kinds of trauma in production, it looks like this, where we basically have slot machines every single place where we have an AI agent node. Once in a while, once in a blue moon, a lot of these brains will activate and then all of them will work in tandem and it will feel like absolute magic. But the alternative is, what if you have the brain activate here and here and here, but then you get a complete explosion here and here? If all of these systems or agents are interconnected, then a failure in one will lead to failures all across the board. So all it takes is really 1 or 2 hallucinations in the system to really topple the rest of the dominoes down and bring this automation to a complete halt. So I won't even take all of the agents I see here. I'm just going to take a sample of 6 just to give you a mental model of not just the risks, but also the possible costs of running a system like this in production. And just to get acquainted with our mini agent army here, we have the triage agent, we have the routing agent, we have the QA, stands for quality assurance agent. And again, remember, this is a small hypothetical workflow for a customer support ticket automation. Nothing rocket science. And then we have the follow-up agent, which looks particularly exhausted. And then we have the billing support agent. And finally, we have the knowledge management agent. Now, hypothetically, imagine that each one of these agents is 75% reliable, meaning that they will not hallucinate, not misfire any tools or misfire at all 75% of the time. So only 25% of the time, there will be some form of issue. That's okay, right? Well, wrong, because as you add more agents, you now basically compound the effect of possible hallucination and misfire throughout the entire system. And I won't overcomplicate it with nitty-gritty math, but I'm just going to kind of break it down at a very high level for you. If we go here, imagine that again, we have 75% reliability for one agent. What happens when you then compound 2 agents, theoretically? Well, the system as a whole would be around 56% reliable. Now, if we double that again to 4 agents, where each one is also 75% reliable, that compounds even more to maybe 32% reliable. Meaning in this case, there's like a 70% chance that something goes wrong. Maybe it's not a terminal failure. Maybe something actually works properly, but there's some failure in the underlying system itself. And then when it comes to 8 agents, if you compound that even further, now it becomes 10% reliable, 90% unreliable. And this isn't even taking into account a lot of the technical issues that can pop up in automations in general, where let's say there's a provider that goes down. Let's say Claude goes down, and you have half of your agents using Claude, but then only the OpenAI ones are working. Let's assume you now have a fallback. You're smart enough and proactive enough to have a fallback for this automation. And let's assume that your fallback is another model like Gemini. But because you're using Gemini and your prompt was geared and optimized for Claude, then you might have even more misfires because you don't have the perfect prompt for the perfect model that you've iterated and tested before. Just taking a few of these elements into account should give you a decent picture that the boring workflows are boring for a reason, but they're also the ones that we actually sell in production for a reason as well. The more deterministic your system with little generative AI sprinkles, the better, and the more reliable it will be, and more importantly, the more cost effective it will be at scale. So when you think about designing automation systems, you want to think of it very similarly to organizing a company. And imagine you are not VC funded, meaning you can't just hire 500 people at once. A lot of companies in the real world are struggling with this, where they're overhiring and overstaffing. And what happens when you overhire and overstaff? You can see here, Scale AI blames overhiring and market shifts for layoffs and says it's not profitable. Same thing across the board from these other companies, and you can see this over and over again. Now, the reason I'm making this bridge or analogy, comparing the real life hiring people to using AI agents in your workflows, is the fact that a lot of people love the idea of having one AI agent per task. So if you have a UI designer, then you have a UI agent. If you have someone that looks at a ticket, then you have a ticket review agent. But in reality, it's important to onboard agents similar to how you'd onboard employees. So you only want to hire the AI agents you truly, really need. Not just because it looks nice, not just because it sounds sexy to have 10 agents do your work for you, but because you absolutely need them and you're pushing them to their natural limit before adding another employee. If you think about your automation as a startup, then ideally you have one employee, one agent, and if they really push the boundaries of their limits, then maybe add another agent, or you can have a sub-agent report to the manager agent. So now you have 1.5-ish agents, one is reporting to the next, but at least you're really scaling your agents as you absolutely need to. If you need to at all, by the way. There are many systems that don't need any form of AI agents, maybe some form of sprinkle generative AI node, but that's it. And if we wanted to make this even more tactical, let's take the agents that we referred to before in a very hypothetical scenario. So let's assume you want to use something like GPT-5 Nano, which is an ultra low cost model from OpenAI. It's not a perfect model, it's decent, and it will probably misfire depending on the complexity of the task. Meaning, I'm assuming here you have one very lean model, no reasoning, nothing. So in an ideal world where none of these agents misfire, this is what it could look like for input and output tokens, where each run you have 3,000 input tokens, 5,000 input tokens, 4,000 input tokens, and then you have output tokens. And then naturally, you're always going to pay more via API costs for output tokens versus input tokens. And if we assumed this cost per ticket using the GPT-5 Nano API across the board, this is what it would look like depending on the mix of output and input, and this is the price at 1,000 tickets. But again, big disclaimer here, we're assuming that none of these agents are misfiring. If they do misfire, then you'll have basically a retry, and most of the time it will retry around 3 times. And how you can tell if you use something like Anyden, if I pull this up, is let's say I had this workflow, right? You could pull on what are called evaluations. So evaluations will have you have some form of set inputs that you set at the very beginning, and then at the very end you would have, again, eval, let me just type it here. And then you'd have, let's say, set outputs and then evaluations at the very end. So you'd have something at the very end where if I disconnect this, you'd hook it up to the very last part of the workflow, assuming that the workflow had a proper terminal ending. This one actually might not be the right place to end it. Visually, this would show you something very powerful. If you run the evaluations, you'll actually get to see how many times your workflow misfires as you run it. And you'll see that sometimes even though the workflow does the right thing, in its reflection, it will go through twice misfiring the wrong tool. And what that means to you is you're actually spending the output tokens and input tokens to go through that run even though you got to the right result. So theoretically, you could have a workflow right now that seems to be working fine. But when you go into the plumbing behind the scenes, you'll see it literally misfiring multiple times. And imagine you have now 8 different areas where this can happen over and over again. That's not so good, is it? And just to contrast this complex system, I want to show you a sneak peek of a very simple, seemingly worthless system that we were able to sell for a decent chunk of change just last year. If I open a brand new end-to-end workflow, I'm going to pull on 3 nodes. So node numero uno is a webhook. Node numero dos, let me just do Lambda. Invoke a function. I'll explain what this is in 2 seconds. And then the last one is just a respond to webhook. Okay? And yes, we were able to sell an automation like this in production to an actual client. Because what this is doing behind the scenes, this Lambda, is a part of AWS, Amazon Web Services. And what this allows you to do is paste a bunch of custom code that executes basically the equivalent of 10 to 15 nodes that you'd have to manually link in any-den. It isn't just simple, straightforward custom code, but you can run, I believe, up to 1 million Lambda functions per month for free. Now, naturally, we had some LLMs in the Lambda itself. So inside the code itself, we're referencing some GPT steps, but in general, all the code, around like 5,000 lines of code, a lot of which AI helped us generate, but obviously we needed to actually step in, was all encaptured in this one node. So when it comes to debugging what's happening, we only have one real point of failure. Now, in the code itself, there could be different areas where we need to adjust, but this is one small, complete extreme to this example here, where we have things all over the place. We have basically AI agent Armageddon. So the main takeaway I'm hoping you'll get from that small lesson is that you ideally want to build the boring and quote-unquote dumb non-agent automations first. Create a normal workflow and push it to its boundaries before you even have to employ an employee, let's say an AI agent. And even when you employ an AI agent, you want to push it to its limit and position it in a very low-risk area. Low-risk area being maybe you have a workflow where you're assessing a ticket, you're tagging it by different keywords, and then at the very end, you draft an email response in your Gmail using generative AI. Now, that's a really good use of an AI agent. And as you hit more bottlenecks in your workflow, where deterministic, meaning non-chaos, not unpredictable parts of the workflow, need some more razzle-dazzle or spice or natural language, then you can keep adding AI agents as it possibly makes sense. I would still say that even adding human-in-the-loop steps is still a priority before you even go the AI agent route. Again, unless it's something like a low maintenance admin task. And then when you add AI, then you want to add it very surgically. You want to be very specific and intentional about it. And even more importantly, you want to get it right so that when you add, let's say, evaluations, if you're using end-to-end, for example, you'll be able to see out of 100 times that you run it, how many times does it misfire? When it misfires, how many times does it retry? How much money are you or the client or whoever you're building this for spending every single time it spins? And last but not least, you want to be able to worry about maintenance because models will change over time. Models will drift over time. Models will get deprecated and go not out of style, but maybe even obsolete as all of these providers keep shifting and rolling their brand new models out. So in many cases, agents are complex, expensive, and most importantly, very fragile. When you change the prompt of one agent, you actually have to technically go back and rerun the workflow another, ideally, 10 to 100 times and see how that micro change in the prompt might have downstream trickle-down effects on the other parts of the system. Whereas on the core automation side, when you make a change, it's very predictable what's going to happen downstream because every single input on its own is fully predictable. The only nuances there is if you have different input data over time, if the structure of that data changes, in which case you'll have to find other ways to process the data before it goes to the workflow, but the workflow itself, the core part of it, should be stable. So if you remember anything from this video, then ideally you want to remember to choose boring, choose profitable. Obviously, AI agents are not all bad, but you want to be very meticulous and specific about when and where you use them. If this helped you out, let me know down in the comments below. And if you like explanations and discussions like this, where we think about system design and using AI in the best place, then check out the first link in the description below, and maybe I'll see you in my early AI adopters community.